I've seen T-shirts that'll say I'm not analyzing you, because they think automatically people think, oh, she's a psychologist, she's analyzing me.
Yeah,
Oh, I'm just having a conversation with you. It's not that deep.
yeah.
I'm just talking to you. I'm not thinking past. I'm not sitting here like, the DSM-5, you're bipolar. No, I'm just having a cup of tea with you. Do you have any kids? What's your favorite TV show? Let's find out what we have in common. I'm not analyzing you. I'm just trying to get to know you. Let's get to know me a little bit. Let's break the ice.
Yeah. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of School Spotlight. Today I have here with me the Deputy Mayor of Smyrna, Delaware, Miss Dr. Corrine Upshur. It's a pleasure to have you with us here today.
Thank you so much, Kayla. I appreciate it. And I'm actually the recently appointed vice mayor of Smyrna.
Oh, what's the difference between the two of them?
It's just the titles for our town. So
Okay.
depending on where you are and what state you're in, it might be like if I was in Philadelphia, I think Philadelphia has, I want to say they might have deputy mayor or something of that sort. Kind of like, you have a principal and you have a vice principal, so it depends on where you are.
Okay. Okay. All right. Well, because I do often hear, especially when talking about the governors, usually like the deputy governor or something like that. But I'm guessing the roles are kind of similar in your case.
Yes, like in Delaware, we have the governor and then we have the lieutenant governor.
Yes, that's what.
Yes, we have the lieutenant governor. And when you look at on a federal level, you have the president and you have the vice president.
Yes.
So those roles are interchangeable when the president is not able to fulfill their role for maybe a moment of sickness or whatever, then the vice president will assume that role. So that is my new role. But I still maintain my role as a council member because my role as vice mayor is appointed, not elected.
Okay. Okay. Well, all this talk about titles and everything actually leads to my first question, which is, what do you do exactly for the town of Smyrna?
So, for the town of Smyrna, as an elected official for District 2, I am the one who advocates for the needs of my district. But to me, it's bigger than that because even though I'm elected for District 2, and listen to the needs and if it's a stop, maybe it's a speed issue or it's an issue at the local park. Maybe the children are misbehaving in the park. I have a park in my district, so I get those phone calls. Hey, the kids are being a little rowdy. It's a lot of traffic that's coming back and forth. Looks a little suspect. I'm very hands on, so I will get in my car and I will go out and say let me what's happening. Let me talk to the young people. I was young once, and as a therapist, I feel like I can get to the point of what the issue might be, and just have a different sense of, being a little bit more rational with people. And again, like I said, I'm very hands on, so I want to know what the people concerns are, and you know, I, I I never make a promise. I'm going to look into it. I'm going to
Yeah.
look into it and find out, what the resources are that I can access, and so how we can remedy the issue. And it's not always an issue. People might just want to be heard, you know.
Yeah, so I can see that you're very like hands-on. You don't just say things like, "Oh, I promise to do this and I promise to do that," which a lot of people and well, I'd say in politics, but I guess what you're doing something similar. I guess it's kind of politics, but a little different.
Yes, because I am a politician. You know, I put that in air quotes because it's I'm elected, but I am definitely for the people, and you don't have to have an office to be for the people.
Yeah. Yeah. So what are those things that you do to kind of stay grounded in your community and like what it what's what do you how does the work that you do help the community that you're in?
So I assess the needs of people. I've been in this community for 20 years and I've sat back and observed and put myself in positions or in organizations that are community focused and was able to determine what the needs are from being in those organizations and from being just a member of the society and seeing that our young people need activities, our seniors need activities. We need to be able to bridge the gap because Smyrna is a small town, and when I moved here 20 years ago, it was extremely rural. So everything that you see here today was farmland. So imagine before I got here, it was even more rural. So we've come a long way, but we still have a lot further to go because we have to be able to match the resources to the people because we are still rural. So we might have some resources, but we still need to connect people to be able to get to those resources. And that is because we are, you live here, but you have to be able to have a vehicle. You can't, it's the 13 is where the bus service is, so people have to be able to get to 13. So if you have to be able to walk there or, I mean, we're still very rural. So you need transportation to get to transportation to get to the resources.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Now, have you always seen yourself like going into politics or public policy, or was this just something that kind of came about throughout your life?
It's something that kind of came about over the past, I'm gonna say maybe 7 or 8 years, just being here and seeing, the need to advocate for myself, advocate for my community, advocate for people. When I saw, I'm a member of the Rotary, and they have an excellent scholarship program. So automatically, I'm like, okay, I want to get on here for the education committee, the scholarship committee, so I can help link the young people at the high school and the surrounding schools because you have to be a Smyrna resident. But at the same time, it's not just the high school. You have to look at the residents who go to Polytech or go to Delaware State, their early childhood, or I'm sorry, their college program. So you have to look at all of those people that live in Smyrna and need to be able to have that outreach. So because I knew that people not only go to that high school, but they live in Smyrna. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, being on that committee, I was able to reach out to other schools that were not just Smyrna High School, but had residents. So that even spanned all the way to Cab Calloway School of the Arts that's in Wilmington
Wow.
that has young people that are seniors that live in Smyrna. So I was able to span out and reach out to those guidance counselors and say, hey, we have this scholarship available. Please have your kids that live in Smyrna apply for the scholarship.
Mm-hmm.
And then, we have our Boys and Girls Club. So it's just getting that program has started to get back on its feet. Delaware Futures for our young people. Because when I got here, when I moved here, my child was 4. So that Boys and Girls Club was everything for us.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
recognizing the need and just, you realizing that you're an advocate and the public policy part kind of just slid in there somewhere. I think because of my need to want to help people, it just happened to line up, I would say.
Yeah, and that's how I find that's a pattern with a lot of people who are in like local politics. They don't start out like saying, "Oh, I want to be the mayor of this town," or "I want to be the governor." Usually they're just like, "Oh, I saw a problem in my community, and so I took the steps to try and solve that problem and try to improve the community, and somehow it just led to this position that I'm in." And I believe that's how you can tell if someone's truly called to do something, because it just kind of finds them, even if they're not looking for it. So that sounds a lot like what happened with you. And so with that being said, just kind of going back to the beginning, what did you dream about doing as a child? And has the dream kind of stayed the same? Do you still want to do something that you've always dreamt of doing, or have you kind of put that to rest and say, I'm fulfilled in what I'm doing right now?
That's a very good question. As a child, I always wanted to be an attorney. Always wanted to be an attorney. Any, law show. I'm a big fan of Law and Order. Grew up watching Law and Order. I just said that's going to be me. I'm going to be an attorney because I wanted to. Again, that's advocating for people. Advocating for their civil rights, giving them a voice. And I have to say, I pursued psychology. I have an undergraduate degree in sociology. Um, I have two master's degrees, one in community psychology and another one in, oh gosh, in psychology. And my doctorate is in psychology. So all of those avenues to me are still advocating for people, are still hearing their voice. And I, as a councilwoman, I'm still able to write public policy. So that's where that law piece still kind of is driven there. I have a cousin, a younger cousin, that I admire so much. She is the youngest judge in Philadelphia on the Court of Common Pleas. So, and her father was one of the first graduates of Widener, African American graduates of Widener Law School. So I right now, when I recently found out that Wilmington University started a law program, that law, that drive for being a lawyer kind of buzzed in my head a little bit like, maybe I could still pursue my legal dreams, but not, I don't want to practice law. I just want to be able to fully understand law so I can continue to advocate for people in that capacity.
Okay. Okay. So you're still, it's the dream is still kind of there, but you realize, okay, I may not be like in the courtroom, but I still want to use the same kind of resources that they have to help and advocate for people.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Now, next thing I want to ask is, everyone experiences opposition. What do you do to kind of push past the naysayers and just keep working towards your goals?
You know what? You have to stay focused and you have to remember what you're really there for. So when it comes to naysayers, I block them out because my goal is my goal. My goal is to fight for the people. So, you know what? You can doubt me all you want. You can say negative things about me, but I am a hands-on person and I will meet you where you are. I will say, hey, if you doubt me, why don't we sit down and have a conversation? Because I'm not a social media person. I will post information for the community, so you know what resources are. When I get it, I'll post it. I have a Juneteenth event. That's my fourth annual Juneteenth event, and I've gotten a lot of media buzz around it. And when I was speaking to one of my, I don't say constituents, I say neighbors. So when I was speaking to one of my neighbors, she said, "Hey, I saw the news buzz about Juneteenth, and we're all coming out. We're really excited about it." And she said, "But I did see some negative comments about, people posted some negative things underneath." And she said, "But we don't care about all that." I said, "And I never read any of that anyway, because it's about bringing our community together. It's about facts. It's about American history. It's about uniting the community." So I would have never looked at that anyway. So it's not, when it comes down to naysayers, guess what? All that's going to do is make me try even harder.
I like that. I like it. Using it as fuel to keep going. Something else he said that kind of stuck out to me. You mentioned, just um wanting to sit down and just talk to people, and you mentioned social media, and a lot of people are quick to just kind of say stuff online. You go you'll see a post on social media, and someone may make a comment, a negative comment, and then someone else responds, and it becomes just a whole debate, and it's over a screen, and most of the time you don't even know these people, like you've never seen them, you've never seen them in your life, and yet there's that conflict. Yet you mentioned how you just wanted to sit down and like say, okay, what's going on, like how can we just kind of like you know reach an agreement. How important do you think is just sitting down and talking to people, um particularly in our day and age when it's quick to just kind of say stuff without thinking? And you mentioned, being in psychology, so I know a lot of that has to do with just sitting down and talking to people one on one. How important would you say that is nowadays when you could just say anything online and not face the consequences?
You know, I am someone who will, I think meeting face to face is so important. And I will say to someone, I remember when I first started running, and it was, you know, well, what are you going to do for us? And, how are you going to advocate for us? So I set up meeting spaces and times.
Hmm.
I want to meet, I'm not going to sit here and debate with you and go back and forth. Hey, I can be, what is your availability? Let's meet face to face. And that's what I did. I arranged spaces and for us to meet face to face. And those same people would go back online and say, "Hey, I met her face to face, and she's the real deal." Because you know what? People are a little bolder online.
Hmm.
They're bold, and they'll say whatever they're feeling, and not really have any meat behind it, and not research and get to know the person. And people are bullies online. You can hide behind that keyboard, but when you meet somebody face to face and put a heart to that person, and a face to that person, and a vibe to that person, then you really get to know that person.
Yeah.
And if you have a heart, then you're going to, kind of melt down a little bit, and see the person for who they really are.
Hmm.
Anybody can hide behind. I didn't grow up in a social media, you know, age. I grew up where you sat down and you talked to people, where we had town halls, where our churches and our recreation centers, we have, we had our neighbors. We talked. We somebody came new to the neighborhood, you would go to their door and say, "Hi, how are you? Welcome to the neighborhood." We don't do that anymore. And I see on the Nextdoor app, people are like, it's like a little thing where you can welcome somebody to the neighborhood, but then you see where it'll a comment will go so wrong, and I'll look at it, and I know it was one maybe a couple months ago. Somebody had posted something and my name was in it. So you know what I did? I messaged that person separately. I'm not going to go in that whole chat and down that dark valley with you. I
Mm-hmm.
messaged that person separately and said, "Hey, this is my personal cell phone number. Please call me. I would love to talk to you in person."
Yeah.
And that's me. I'm not going to go into a whole spiral of negativity. I want to meet you where you are in a peaceful place. I want you to meet me and see who I am. I'm a human being just like you. And I'm not a negative person.
Mm-hmm.
So I try to, again, and that's how I was brought up. And then at the same time, that's my education as
Mm-hmm.
well. That's psych background as well. That's that community psych background. That's me.
Yeah. Yes. So and it also just comes with, just knowing how not to just automatically assume things about people because it's easy to say, oh, this person said this, and so they must be that type of person. But really just like that's why it's important to sit down and talk to the person because you can get a lot about who a person is just by having a conversation with them. And like it's different when you're sitting face to face too, because you kind of can feel the energy of the person. It's easy to say anything when you can't see them or if you're just away at a distance. But when you're with the person, you're very much aware of them. And so usually you're a lot more careful about what you say. And so but I think ultimately, yeah, it's just like not being offended easily because people will say you know crazy things, and
Yes.
so you
People are
have
people are
yeah,
people. People are
yeah,
people. And we are in some very perilous times right now. And we have to be careful what we say to each other because you don't know if that thing that you're saying to that person in that moment was the last thing that might have set them over the edge. So
mm-hmm,
we have to really be careful on how we communicate with each other because a lot of times people are not communicating in love. And we
mm-hmm,
need to communicate more in love and not in that moment. You have to give if you're angry, and this is the therapist in me. If you're angry, you need to give yourself 12 to 24 hours before you respond to anybody because your immediate response is going to be if you're angry, you're going to respond in anger.
yeah.
So you have to give yourself time to decompress and to process before you respond.
Yes, yes. And I heard something, I don't know if it's a quote but I heard something a while ago that people, when they're angry, they'll say things that they don't mean, but if they say it like in the heat of the moment that they really do mean it, it's just that they were suppressing it. Do you believe that's true, or do you think it's just the emotions just getting the best of a person?
I believe that two things can be true at the same time.
Hmm.
I believe two things can be true at the same time. So it could be that they were suppressing it and
Mm-hmm.
that's really how they felt, or they were in that moment and they were angry in that moment. I think that, you know, people are products of their environment. And if their environment shifts and they're exposed to different experiences, then their frame of mind can also shift. If you grew up in hate, but then you are separated from hate and you're involved in a community of love and that's reciprocated and you see something different, you feel something different, then your heart, that heart of stone can change.
Yeah. Yeah, and people grow over time too, especially with the company that you're around. Now, how would you say that having this, this background in psychology, how would you say that helps you in what you're doing right now?
It helps me be able to recognize various personalities and just recognize that people are people. And you never know what somebody is going through. You never know what somebody is thinking until you really just sit down and have a conversation with someone. I've seen T-shirts with, that'll say I'm not analyzing you, because they think automatically people think, oh, she's a psychologist, she's analyzing me.
Yeah,
Oh, I'm just having a conversation with you. It's not that deep.
yeah,
I'm just talking to you. I'm not thinking past. I'm not sitting here like, the DSM-5, this you're bipolar. No, I'm just having a cup of tea with you. How are you? Do you have any kids? What's your favorite TV show? Let's find out what we have in common. I'm not analyzing you. I'm just trying to get to know you. Let's get to know me a little bit. Let's break the ice.
yeah. Yeah, that's what a lot of people say about, especially like first year psychology students. They say that they're always out trying to diagnose different people because they're just fresh in the area. And so they're just like, yep, that person is this, that person is depressed, that person is anxious. But sometimes you just gotta realize, no, they're just having a conversation. They're not trying to be a therapist or a psychiatrist or anything.
No. And you know what? And that's a label. So
Yeah.
that person is not bipolar. That person is a person that is struggling with bipolar. That person, that's not a depressed person. That is a person that is struggling with depression.
Yeah.
So we have to stray away from labels and labeling people and understanding that that person is a person that is going through this situation, not that person is that person is bipolar, that person's depressed, that person is manic, that person is had this PTSD. No, that is a person that is going through. All
Yeah.
of us, all of us are, if we are truly honest with ourselves, are going through something.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yeah.
how we manage it. It's how the resources is accepting that we are going through something. You know, my reality, my perception is not your reality. You
Mm,
know, so and vice versa. So we just all have to give each other grace.
yeah. Absolutely. And how would you say uh how can people separate those labels from their identity? Because a lot of people will wrap those labels and make it their whole personality. So how would you say people kind of separate the two?
Get to know the person. Get to know the person. And again, like I said, find out what you have in common. You would be surprised when you sit down and have a conversation with someone, like you separate that title. Um, I'm going to say it's a Jay-Z. I can't remember what the name of the song is, but this is a quote that stuck with me from him. And he said, the people highest up have the lowest self-esteem. And being a person that with this psych, psych background and
Mm-hmm.
being around people that have high titles, you would be so surprised with that statement.
Mm-hmm.
That statement was so profound to me, being in this frame of my professional background, psychology, not the political one, but my
Yeah.
psych background. And you when you see people that are when you see celebrities and when they finally or when they come out and admit that they were struggling through something. And unfortunately, this generation looks at celebrities as role models, when you have role models that are right in a community that you can touch and feel and that can pour into you. And that's unfortunate because they are people. They
Mm-hmm.
are people just like you and I, except they might have a little bit more status, but they might not be happy, you know, and people that might not have as much as them are so much more happy.
Yeah, yeah. And I also believe it's sometimes it could be like the circumstance and the fame and everything kind of really kind of pressures them into a hard spot. And then there are some people who are already struggling and they reach a sort of level of influence. And I just think it's funny how um I believe that God kind of places people who aren't super confident, and he often places them in high, in high positions. And I'm sure he does it. We don't know why he does everything. Of course, he's God, but
Right.
I believe he does it to kind of show that, hey, I guess they're the best people because they're not so proud to where all of that fame will get to their head. They already know, who they are, and they're just able to kind of do whatever they do best and kind of leave the fame and everything kind of out. But that's just something that I observed. I don't know if it's, true for everybody, but I do find that happens often.
I think that happens often too. I will use Kanye West as an example because I remember uh, when he was, well, when I guess he's still struggling, but when he was struggling at one point, it was something that he said in a song. He said, "You know what? I always wanted this fame forever." He said, "But you know what? Y'all can have it back." And I
Hmm.
said, that was a powerful statement because there's so many people that strive for that fame, but with fame, it's a lot of pressure and a lot of cost to it, you know. And he said, "You can have it back." I said, "Wow, you know, it's not all what it seems to be. It's
Yeah,
not what it seems to be. It's a cost to that fame."
yeah, 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 and everything, as you know, everything is not how is not always how it seems. So I guess the one of the important things to remember is just to be grateful with where you are and to be, happy with your own life and where you are, and think about, okay, how can I make a change where I am right now in my life? And in fact, that kind of leads into one of my questions, which is, what's a piece of advice you can give to someone who wants to help their community, even in the smallest way?
I think the best thing is to find a find a resource that aligns with your values. So if it's the Boys and Girls Club, if it's the Rotary, if if it is if you're interested in politics, coming and shadowing, a council member, and interning with a council member. If you're interested in being a police officer, then they have explorer programs. If you're interested in being an entrepreneur, whatever that business is, then going to a business and saying, "Hey, would you mind if I shadowed you? Can I learn from you?" People are more open than you think, because I recognize that the next generation is you guys. I at one point I was that next generation, but you young people, hey, I'm learning so much, and I know that you guys are going to be taking over. Hey, I'm in my early 50s, and I remember when I was younger, I used to think 50 was old, but 50 is not old.
No, it's middle-aged. It's not old.
It is not old. I used to think 30 was old until I turned
Yeah,
30.
yeah,
So, I'm still learning, and as long as every day that you wake up and God gives you an opportunity to breathe, it's an opportunity for you to get it right.
yes, yes. I love that. I love that quote. Every day is like hitting the restart button. You get to start over and fix the mistakes from the day before. And just to close out our conversation, you're a person of faith, and so how does holding on to your faith, how has that helped you um find hope in adversity?
I'm going to say my favorite scripture is in Psalms 8, 4 through 8. And it's just simply, what is man that thou art mindful of him? And when I think about that, just that first line alone is so humbling. When I think that God thought enough
Hmm.
about me, I got to do this. It's like, I got God, you thought about me. I'm going to do this for you.
Yeah.
Just keep directing my paths. When I'm in doubt, I'm human. There's times where I'm doubtful, but I know that he has my back. And with as long as he's with me, I can do anything. I can do anything. And that even in the midnight hour, that he's got me. No matter, I'm a human being like everybody else. I have trials and tribulations, but as long as he's with me, I can do it all. I can come through there. I can come through everything and anything as long as I got him. And that he was mindful of me.
That that is absolutely beautiful. I don't even know what else to say after that. I guess do you have any last comments or anything that you want to share?
Um, if you ever have a question, or if I'm always available. I am somebody that I believe in being approachable. Not always accessible, because you don't want to have everybody you
Yeah.
don't want to be easily accessible. You want to
Yeah.
be able to still have that spirit of discernment. But definitely approachable, because when you are approachable, you don't know what God has in store for you.
Hmm. Yeah. And you never know what kind of people he's going to bring in your life to kind of bless you and help you in that way.
Oh my
So,
goodness, yes. And the more and more that I am being approachable, and letting people talk to me, and being in spaces and places that God is having me go into, I'm just, even this weekend, I'm being honored, and I would have never thought 10 years ago that I would be at this at an event like this, where it all started from me just being at our mayor's prayer breakfast that we have every year, and somebody coming up to me and saying, "Hey, is it okay if I put your name um, in for being honored? Our church has this banquet every year." And I was like, "Sure, okay." Not realizing 6 months later that that conversation would manifest into, "Hey, you were chosen." I'm like, what was it again?
yeah.
I was like, what was
Yeah.
it again? And then when I saw the other people that I was being honored with, I'm like, wait, these are people. Like, these are
Yeah.
people that, like, I respect. And, like, I'm like, oh my God, wow. I'm in, like, God, you saw fit to have me in with these people. From a conversation that was just in passing 6 months ago, I didn't think twice about that conversation. It was just like, oh, okay. But it's God.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, and I want to applaud you for just being open and being willing too, because you could have said, "No, I'm okay," but then you would have missed your blessing and you wouldn't be where you are today. So it also, it's about being open and just being willing to go and just do do what you're called to do and do it well.
And I wouldn't be able to do that without him.
Yes,
Because believe
yes.
me, Corrine would have said, so you can't leave it to Corrine.
Yeah.
Definitely can't leave it to me.
Yeah. Well, I just want to say thank you again for joining me today. I've learned so much from this conversation we've had, and I've heard so much, so many great things about you, and I was like, yes, I got my next person I want to interview. So I'm just again so grateful for you to come on and just share a little bit about what you do and how you help your community and just who you are as a person.
Thank you so much. I'm so humbled and so honored and so blessed because your father or your mother is so amazing. And I just thank you for wanting to interview me.
Yes, yes. Listen, we talked about being open. I'm open to talking with anyone. It doesn't matter if you're the president or if you're just the mayor, it doesn't matter. I'm open and I learn so much just through these conversations. So I'm just extremely grateful just to be in this position and talk to outstanding individuals like you and even just share it with other people.
Well, thank you, Kayla. I appreciate you. And I wish you all the best in your journey and your endeavors.
Thank you so much.